"What should I do?" Peter asked as he walked back to the military base with the other two. "We'll follow along as far as we can go. Just agree to whatever they ask of you for now, and we can figure it out later," Vorden said. Just then, as they were about to exit the forest, Vorden suggested that Peter walk up ahead while they followed him from behind. "Peter, I'm taking my chances with you this time. I have forgiven you. It doesn't mean I trust you. Not yet, or maybe ever." Layla nudged Vorden in the ribs. "Give the guy a break, will you?" she whispered. She gave Peter an encouraging smile. However, Vorden was dead serious. They had finally arrived at the second-year building. From this point on, Vorden and Layla could no longer follow. Peter entered the building and walked into Duke's office. "Please, come and sit down, Peter," Duke said. "It seems the two of us haven't been able to talk since the last task I had set for you." Duke then went under his desk and pulled out several books and placed them on the table. There were 3 Earth ability books numbered from 2 up to 4. "Although things didn't go quite according to plan, you still held up your end of the bargain, and I don't want to seem like a person who doesn't keep his promises," he said, smiling. If Peter didn't notice it before, he could notice it now. There was something sinister about Duke's smile. Just why was he trying so hard to get rid of Vorden in the first place? Peter thought. Isn't everyone on the same side to fight against the Dalki? "Thank you, sir. Is there anything else you would like me to do?" Peter asked. "We have a visitor next week, and I'm going to need you to learn the Earth ability up to level 4. In a couple of weeks, come back and report to me. You're dismissed." Peter then bowed down to the general before leaving the room. "Looks like I've been able to convert another one. In the end, everyone wants to be at the top," the Duke thought. As Peter left the room, he spotted Earl waiting just outside to be called in. "What are you looking at, dog?" he snapped back. Earl still hadn't recovered from what Vorden had done to him before the outing. Hearing those words and seeing Earl again, sudden images started to appear in his head. Unpleasant images. Very unpleasant. "Hey, I know. Why don't you wait for me out back after this? I and the boys have a little surprise for you," Earl said. "Whatever you say, Earl," Peter replied, secretly smiling on the inside. While the others were busy doing their own thing, Erin had eventually calmed down from it all. When she thought back to the image of the Dalki, her body started to shiver uncontrollably. "Calm down, Erin. Deep breaths," she thought to herself. While she was fine with keeping Quinn's identity a secret, she was nervous about covering her own back and curious to see just how dangerous this vampire thing was. Eventually, that led her to the library. At first, Erin went down the non-fiction aisle to see if there was anything she could find, but there was nothing. There were no vampires, and there didn't seem to be anything close to describing them in the first place. This left her no choice but to head to the fiction section, and nearly instantly she found several novels about vampires. But just from looking at the covers, she found it hard to tell what vampires were. Vampire the Last Blood, Bite Me or Love Me, Thicker Than Blood. Erin decided to just pick up one of the books at random. She picked up the book titled Bite Me or Love Me. She stood there in the aisle and started reading it. "So, you're interested in vampires, huh?" a boy's voice said, coming from her left side. As she turned her head to see who it was, "I didn't expect to see a beautiful girl like you here," the boy said as he swept back his black hair. "The name's Fex. Nice to meet you." Outside the second-year building, out in the open field, Layla and Vorden were still patiently waiting. Peter had gone in a while ago, but now they started to wonder what was taking him so long. They concluded that it wasn't likely that Peter was going to come out any time soon. They had a feeling something might have happened. With that in mind, the two of them decided to stop waiting out front and started to head around the back. There was no entrance to get into the school from the back, but perhaps they could find some other entrance, either by climbing some walls or through some other means. When they got around to the back side of the building, they could see another student standing guard there. Using Layla's powers, they both lifted a couple of stones and threw them to distract the student. "Are you ready?" Layla asked with a smile. She couldn't believe she was having fun sneaking around and causing trouble, and with Vorden of all people. "As I thought, you do look a little cute when you're smiling," Vorden said in response. Peter was patiently waiting outside the place where he had suggested. Hey, Peter, it's been a while, hasn't it?" Earl said as he walked closer before, adding, "You know, lately, Duke has been blaming me for all of the failed attempts against Vorden, so I haven't been getting any rewards. How are you going to solve that for me?" While walking closer to Peter, Earl looked at what was in Peter's hands, which were the level 2, 3, and 4 Earth ability books. Although Earl was already a level 4 Earth user and had no need for the books himself, he could always sell them on the market to earn some money. "Hand them over, you piece of crap," Earl said as he slapped Peter across the face, leaving a red mark. Peter looked at the mark on his face. Usually, in a situation like this, his hands would be shaking. Earl then proceeded to kick Peter in the stomach before grabbing him by the collar and throwing him onto the ground. Peter was now in a space between two buildings, namely the second-year building and one of the storage rooms. It was a place that was quite dark, and unless someone purposely went around the back to find them, no one would find out. "Well then, isn't this a quiet little place for the two of us to carry on our usual business?" Earl asked with a smile. Peter then stood up and responded with a smile, "Indeed it is." After distracting the students who were standing by the side of the building using the floating stones, they were able to gradually make their way towards the back of the second-year building without being seen. "Come on, let's keep looking," Layla said. "There must be some way to get into the school. Maybe there's a pipe or something we can use to climb up to the windows." "You have been watching way too many martial arts movies," Layla said. Still, they decided to check it out now that they were here anyway. As they made their way to the space between the two buildings, certain cracking and gobbling noises were made, as if some type of wild dog was wolfing down its meal. Finally, they turned the corner, only to see Peter there. However, he wasn't alone. His hands and mouth were covered in blood, while a dead body wearing a student's uniform laid in front of him. The student's body had parts of its limbs torn off. Also some bones with little bits of flesh still attached could be seen, and they looked as if someone had hungrily ripped the meat right off the bone. "Peter?" Layla said. "What have you done?" The VIP dorm rooms of the first-year building were on the third floor. Quinn had decided to head here to meet someone. At first, Quinn knocked on the door, but there seemed to be no answer. When trying to push the door open, he was surprised to see that it wasn't locked, nor shut properly. "Hello?" Quinn asked as he crept into the room. Just at the other end of the room, he could see Logan in his chair. He had some sort of metallic tool glove in his right hand, while a giant pair of goggles seemed to be hovering over his eyes. Oh, he was just busy as usual, Quinn thought to himself. Quinn then started to look around the room at all the gadgets around him. He knew when Logan was in his concentration mode, no matter what you did, you wouldn't get his attention. But as Quinn was looking around, he spotted a strange object on one of the shelves. It stood out compared to the rest, because most of the things in the room seemed to be covered in dust, but not this one. It was a square-shaped device no bigger than a laptop, and on the top, it seemed to have some type of digital display. Inspect. A return portal device. When the correct access code has been entered, it will return you to the destination that has been preset. Creator, Richard Eno. Quinn moved in to take a closer look. It seemed to be the only item that wasn't made by Logan, and on top of that, it was a teleporter, but it was one that he had never seen before. The portal teleporters they currently carried were quite large devices, but this one was small and compact, as if the technology was ahead of their current time. Quinn reached out to grab it, but just then a voice from behind spoke to him. "Hey, if you want to get your fingers blown off, then please be my guest. Carry on and touch it," Logan said sarcastically. His seat was turned around, and he was staring at Quinn. "Then again, I would love to see whose ability is stronger, mine or yours," he continued. "Sorry about that," Quinn said as he pulled back his hand. "It looks kind of interesting. What is it exactly?" When Quinn finished talking, the robotic gauntlet that was one of Logan's hands started to break down. It appeared to break into smaller parts until they looked like little bugs. Then, the bugs went over to where Quinn was. They grabbed the case and brought it over to Logan. "The thing has been the bane of me and my family's life," Logan said, looking around it. "As you know, my family are originals who hid their abilities from the world. Before the war started, they were researchers who worked privately for different corporations, sometimes even governments, different armies, and all sorts of companies. Anyway, on one of their trips around 50 years ago, they discovered this device. At the time, no one knew what it was, and it seemed like our ability didn't work on it either. Of course, my family tried to research it, and eventually, when we discovered the Dalki technology, we found similarities between this and the Dalki technology. It appears to be some type of teleporter, but the question is, Why would Dalkey technology exist on Earth before they even arrived? Then that just brings us even more questions. Why did the Dalkey attack us? Were they here before? But did we just never know about it? Hearing all of these questions were causing Quinn to think about it. Anyway, Logan said, it's not like I'm expecting you to know any of these answers. The one thing we do know is whoever was able to create a compact teleporter such as this is a genius. Oh, how I wish I could meet him one day. Wait, what did you say? Quinn replied. Did you say you don't know who created it? Of course I don't. If I did, my family and I would have been chasing him for generations. This made Quinn sink even deeper in thought. Richard Eno was a well-known scientist, the person who had discovered not only the power of beast crystals, but also how the Dalkey portals worked. Could he have known everything all along? Right now, though, this was too big of a problem to solve, especially for someone like him. He was just one person in this whole thing, and he had his problems to deal with. Anyway, Logan said, what did you visit me here for? Did you want to play the game again? Actually, Quinn said, I was wondering if you could help me make a suit. Well, it seems you've come to the right person, said Logan. I can design you one myself. Really? Quinn asked, surprised. Of course, it will be easier than making some of my other contraptions, he said, smiling. The two of them then sat down together. The crystals were placed in a seemingly special container while they were going through some type of melting process. On top of Logan's desk, a large metal sheet was placed. Logan then placed his hand on the sheet and closed his eyes. Just like with the gauntlet before, the metal started to break down and move, eventually turning into little metal bugs again. The metal bugs started to form a human figure until it molded something that vaguely resembled Quinn. The two of them continued to go through the design process, altering what the metal model looked like. Each time Quinn would give a suggestion, the robots would move in place. There was not much that could be done with the suit. It had to be black in color and skin fit tight. However, the mask could be altered greatly. When using the outfit and mask, Quinn wanted to strike fear into his opponent's hearts. He wanted something quite scary looking. They went through several designs until it was finally done. It's amazing, Quinn said as he walked over to it and started to stroke the model. The black suit was skin-tight, but had a scaled pattern like that of a snake throughout its entire surface. However, there were a few design touches added to it from Logan that Quinn hadn't asked for. Do you like the additions that I made? Logan asked. On the forearms going up to the shoulder, 3 red claw-like marks could be seen on both sides. Although it looked nice, Quinn was hoping for the suit to be all black. If he was also to use this at night, he probably would have been seen. Nevertheless, when he looked at Logan's bags and his tired face, he found it hard to say no. It's great, Quinn replied. Now, I do have to warn you, although expensive metals were used when making this, there is a limit to how much it can endure, Logan explained. They were only basic tier crystals after all. It will fare well against intermediate weapons, but anything stronger than that and it will tear apart. Quinn made sure to make a note of that since it would be the same while facing beasts. If he was fighting during the day, he would be sure to pick and choose his opponents. Although suddenly, Quinn's body started to feel a strange sensation. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, only a tad different. His eyes started to glow once again. A strange power was surging through his body. What the hell is happening? Quinn thought. Hey, are you okay? Logan said. Do you need me to go get a doctor or something? As Logan stood in front of Quinn, he could see the color in his eyes change, and even Logan stepped back a bit. At the same time, little metallic bugs started to come over and built a metallic suit of their own over his body. Eventually, the bugs had completely formed a metallic suit that looked like that of a small mech suit, only without all the clunky parts and more in line with the shape of a human. These were all precautions that Logan took just in case Quinn was to go out of control. But then the feeling died down and his eyes returned to normal, but a message had appeared. A family member has grown stronger.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
Standing alone in the fantasy section of the library was Erin and a strange boy known as Fex. Erin was still holding a vampire love story in her hand, and her face had gone bright red as she couldn't believe someone had just caught her reading such a dirty book. Quickly hoping to avoid further embarrassment, Erin put the book back where it was placed, and started to walk over towards the boy. Fex started to smile. "Now, why don't you lift your head so I can take another look at your pretty face?" Erin lifted her head, but dashed forward in an instant. A type of ice sword was forming in her right hand. Using her forearm, she pushed Fex up against the wall right by his neck. The area started to freeze, and now the ice sword was pointed right at his throat. "If you tell anyone about what you saw today, you're dead, you hear me?" "Look, I don't want to cause any trouble," he said. Erin looked at him carefully, noticing all the features that he had. "Good. I will remember you, and if anyone finds out about what you saw today, I'll be coming back for you," Erin said as she took away the ice sword. She then started her exit, leaving Fex in this sticky situation, frozen to the wall with the ice, still confining his body. "Wait!" he shouted. "Aren't you going to let me go?" Eventually, Erin had left the library. The other people who were nearby going to look at the commotion down the aisle, wondering what was going on. However, all they could see was a single man stuck up against the wall. A few laughed and giggled, as it wasn't the first time they had seen something like this. After all, few of the braver boys among the first-year students had tried to confess their love to Erin. She would often leave them there frozen in place while waiting for the ice to melt. She did this as a warning for other suitors in the future. While no one was looking, Fex used his strength to break free both of his arms from the ice. He then used his hands to crack the ice that was around his neck as well. "Looks like someone was able to resist my charm already," Fex said. "Well now, that just makes me want to go after her more." Fex's original plan was to travel and explore the human world, to experience all the things his grandfather had told him, but his plans were quickly stopped once he was caught. When he woke up, he was in front of General Nathan. However, Nathan did say that as long as he contacted his guardians, informed them, and showed proof of his age, they would set him free. A digital display then appeared in front of Fex's face with a little digital keyboard. It asked him what type of ability he had. For this question, he had a plan. After checking over the details and seeing Fex's ability, no more work needed to be done. A wristwatch was given to Fex before leaving. The display on the device was showing the number 1. Not knowing what to do, and knowing nearly no one at the base, Fex decided to head to the library to update himself on current events. This led him to his first real encounter with another student, Erin. The rest of the story was what got him frozen to a wall. After looking at a few books about vampires, he quickly realized that most of them were just a bunch of nonsense. As Fex was leaving the library, he had no idea what to do, so he decided that he would just go to his dorm room. While walking down the hallway towards the staircase, he caught a whiff of scent with his nose, and a familiar smell registered in his mind. "Now this is interesting. I wonder what family he belongs to. What on earth is he doing at this base?" Fex thought. In the dark alley away from the prying eyes, the two of them stood there in shock as they watched Peter feasting on a human body. Seeing the atrocious sight, Layla could no longer stomach it. "I think I'm just going to step out of the alley for a bit and keep watch," Layla said as she quickly rushed out. "Peter!" Vorden said in an aggressive but quiet voice. "Peter!" Suddenly, Peter seemed to snap out of whatever daze he was in. He immediately dropped what was in his hand and started to scurry away into the alley. "Was this me?" Peter said as he thought back to what had happened just moments ago. When Earl had called out to him and kicked him down the alley, a type of rage had consumed him. Then, soon after, Earl became a tasty snack for Peter. Peter would have liked to say his mind was out of it. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew that was a lie. Peter knew exactly what he was doing. The only thing Peter didn't plan for was what happened after. Right now, in front of Vorden, Peter needed to keep up his act as a weak-minded boy. He was too worried about what the others would think of him if they found out he knew exactly what he had just done. I just killed someone," Peter said. "Cut the crap," Vorden said. "Now is not the time to act like this. How long has he been dead for?" "What do you mean?" Peter replied. "I said how long. It's important, Peter. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? The panic in Vorden's voice seemed to be getting urgent. "I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, I would say," Peter answered. Wasting no time, he then grabbed Peter by the arm and dragged him out of the alley. "We have to get out of here now," he said with urgency in his voice. When the area was clear, they would walk again until they finally returned to the open spot in the forest where they were practicing a while ago. "What was the big rush back there? We just left the body in the alleyway. Won't the school find out that a student died?" Layla asked. "We had no choice," Vorden replied. Maybe if we had gotten there a little earlier, we could have done something, taken the body with us. But once the watch is taken off or detects no sign of life, it pings a message to the school. Fortunately for us, the watch waits a full 5 minutes before sending this type of thing. That's why I was in a rush. If we were seen, there's nothing we could have done. At least now we won't be caught. But what about the body? Won't they search for whoever did this? Just as Layla said this, the sound of leaves ruffling on the floor could be heard as another person entered this part of the forest. It was a student holding an umbrella in his hand. "What body are you guys talking about?" Quinn asked. Once the strange feeling had come over, Quinn's body had disappeared. A message appeared, one stating that one of his family members had gotten stronger. The strange sensation and connection between him and Peter. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, but it wasn't getting him stronger, it was Peter. "I'm sorry, Logan. Thanks all for your help, but I don't have time to talk now. I have to go," Quinn shouted. With that, Quinn ran down the hallway and the staircase, rushing over to where Peter was. Without slowing down, Quinn ran down the stairs and out the hallway, ignoring everyone he went past. But for the first time, a strange scent entered his nose. It was unusual for Quinn, as he had never smelt this before. If he wasn't in such a rush and panic, he would have turned around to see who was giving off such a strange smell. Before leaving the school, he grabbed a random umbrella at the entrance. Once he had left the academy, he continued to listen to his body, following the connection, which eventually led him to the park and finally inside the forest. As he arrived, he managed to hear the last few words that Layla had said. However, there wasn't much to ask. Judging by the system's message, Quinn could guess what had happened already. Peter had eaten human flesh, and most likely killed someone in the process. While Quinn wanted to blame Peter for the actions, he really couldn't. Quinn was the one who turned him into this creature, and he knew exactly what it was like. As Vorden was exiting the forest from where Quinn had gone, he whispered into Quinn's ear, "You need to do something about him, and fast." "Now, can one of you please tell me what happened?" Quinn asked. Meanwhile, Vorden made sure to cover the clothes as best as he could. Then, from his and Peter's closets, he grabbed a change of clothing. With a new set of clothes for Peter in one bag and the bloody clothes in the other, he needed to find a way to get rid of the evidence. Just as he was walking down the hall wondering what to do about it, he spotted someone who would make his life a lot easier for him. "Hey, Berg," Vorden said. "How are you doing?" Placing the bag in his left hand into his other hand, he touched Berg on the shoulder and successfully copied his flame abilities. "Oh, Vorden," Berg said with a fake smile on his face. "It's so nice to see you. About those crystals, you don't have to worry about giving them back. Think of it as a gift from my family to yours." "Oh, thanks. I was just coming to check if that was okay with you," Vorden replied. But while Vorden was doing his best to fake a conversation, he noticed that many of the students in the hallway were gossiping about something. "Did you hear about what they found?" one of the students said. "You mean that thing they found behind the second-year building?" another replied. "Yeah, all the students are outside, while the school's investigation team is trying to find out what happened. I think maybe a student got killed." Using this opportunity, Vorden was able to sneak off into a secluded area and burn all the evidence without anyone noticing. Several soldiers were standing outside the second-year building. They were blocking all the entrances both at the front and backside of the building. Looking around the gruesome scene of the murder, Haley and Faye were reminded of things they had seen on the battlefield during the war. That's how bad it looked to them. As Haley was kneeling on the floor and examining body parts, she seemed to be unaffected by the whole thing. After she had looked around for a while, it seemed like she had spotted something interesting. She started to pick up body parts one by one and place them in a specific order. "I noticed something strange about all the parts I've gathered and lined up. They all have one thing in common," Haley replied. "As far as I can see, the only thing they have in common is that they are spattered with blood all over. So what did you notice?" Faye asked as she looked around. She was trying to see what Haley had noticed. Haley picked up one of the body parts, which looked like part of a leg. She then showed it to Faye and said, "You see this here?" while she pointed at 2 puncture marks. "For the most part, it looks like whoever or whatever did this used some type of claw to dig into this student's flesh, but on a few body parts, I noticed those puncture wounds that look like teeth marks." "Okay, I see what you're saying," Faye said with confusion on her face. Well, the thing is, this isn't the first time that I've seen these kinds of marks. Do you remember when we went through the red portal and we discovered the true dream member? Haley asked. Well, he wasn't the only one. I've seen the same marks on other students in the sickbay before. You're not saying those two students could have anything to do with it, are you? Faye asked incredulously. I'm not saying that they are the culprit, but whatever it is, it's following them around or linked to them in some way, Haley replied. Inside the first-year building dorm room, the group had gathered. Damn it! Layla shouted. Now that I've witnessed everything, I'll be called an accomplice. If they find out about this, we could be put in the dungeon. What will I tell my parents then? It was the first time the group had seen Layla so freaked out. Peter, I think you owe us an explanation, Vorden said. Fair enough, if you were hungry and needed to eat something, why didn't you come to us? I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me, Peter said. When the hunger grew and Earl slapped me, I just lost control. When I finally regained control, I was already eating his corpse. I don't know what happened in between. Peter turned out to be quite an impressive actor. He looked frightened and worried, and everyone there bought it. Although, there was one exception. He's lying, the system said.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
What do you mean? Quinn asked. If you want to find out the truth, here is my advice. This is what you need to do. You need to tell me the truth, Peter. Why did you kill him? As Quinn asked this question, he bit down on his thumb using his fang. He then lifted his hand, and like some type of magnet, Peter was attracted to it. Peter immediately leapt up from where he was and started to suck on Quinn's thumb. The connection between the two started to grow stronger again, and both of their eyes started to glow. Now, tell me, why did you kill that student? Quinn again used that authoritative voice. Peter's eyes lit up red and felt an urge to answer truthfully. It was like a magic truth spell. It forced Peter to be truthful with his master. Earl, if it was anyone that deserved to die, it was him. Any day whenever I was on my own, and when your backs were turned from me, he would come to torture me. After I met with Duke, I got rewarded with the ability books, but he didn't get anything from Duke, so he wanted to take out his anger on me. But this time, I finally had the power to fight back, so I decided to show him he can't mess with me anymore. Eating him was just a little bonus, and I might have overdone it a bit. Hearing the truth come out of Peter's mouth made Quinn feel a lot better. Peter, your actions aren't wrong, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, Vorden said. But here's where you and I are different. Your actions also put Quinn in danger. If you're caught, there is always a chance that it could lead back to him. And what's even more dangerous is that we are involved as well. Vorden glared at Peter before continuing. I plan to take my revenge on Duke and Momo in our second year, but when I do, I will do it carefully so no one else gets hurt. System, is there any way for Peter to stop consuming meat, any way at all? Quinn asked. Of course there is, but you're not going to like the answer I'm about to give you, the system said. Just like yourself, when you consume blood, you grow stronger. The same goes for Peter when he eats human flesh. Although for him there is a limit. Eventually he will grow so strong that he will be able to evolve and will no longer require human flesh. The next day had arrived, and the usual suspects were inside the same room once again, all deciding on what to do with Peter. So, do you feel hungry right now? Layla asked. Not any more than usual when I wake up, Peter replied. Vorden and Quinn had already bought plenty of raw food for him to eat, and for now, it seemed to have been working in suppressing his hunger. Guys, relax, Peter said nervously. I promise, as soon as I get hungry again, I'll let you guys know straight away. Still, Vorden said, that doesn't solve our problem of feeding you when you do need to be fed. We may have gotten away with it this time, but we need something consistent. Quinn had thought of these suggestions early, but once again the system had informed him of bad news. The meat being used had to be fairly fresh. The pressure was getting to Quinn. Quinn, relax, Vorden said. I have an emergency if it comes to it. For now, spend your day like a normal person, while Layla and I will try to come up with something. If it doesn't work out, then we can use my backup plan. What is the backup plan? Layla asked. Vorden then called Quinn over and whispered into his ear while looking at Layla out of the corner of his eye. Vorden, I can't let you do that, Quinn said. As I said, only if it comes to it. It's the only thing that won't put us in any danger, Vorden replied. There were plenty of cases where soldiers would get injured in mock battles or out on expeditions during portal training, and sometimes there would be lethal damage. But while Quinn was outside, he decided to stop off at a certain spot. Quinn needed to make sure he was fine first. "You are being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be reduced by 70%. Shadow equip," Quinn called out. The shadow started to wrap around his whole body this time, and a few seconds later, the black suit that Logan had designed covered his entire body, and the demon-like mask was planted on his face. "You are no longer being affected by sunlight. All stats have returned to normal." With his white glaring eyes and demon-like mask, then the red claws ran up the side of his arms. He truly did look like something out of a kid's nightmare. After testing out his new suit, he put it back away in his shadow void and decided to start heading towards the hospital. In nearly every corner of the room, there was a round object with a blinking red light. They were cameras. This was a major problem. If Quinn or the others were to try to take anything, they would be caught on camera. And he couldn't use the suit, otherwise, when he would reveal himself, everyone would know it was him. There was the option of using a shadow cloak. Although that made him invisible, the same couldn't be said for the objects he or others were touching. With nothing else to see, Quinn decided to head back, although while doing so, he couldn't help but notice all the blood bags around him. Just as Quinn was leaving the hospital, a voice message seemed to appear on his watch. "Quinn Tayland, you are to report to General Nathan's office immediately. If you are not here in the next 30 minutes, then we shall have guards come and escort you here immediately." The message ended, and Quinn couldn't help but feel nervous. Had they found out about him being a vampire? Or maybe Peter had been found and he had been ratted? He stood in front of Nathan's office and gave a knock before entering. "Come in," Nathan said. As Quinn entered through the door, he could see Nathan standing there with Haley and Faye in the room. But that wasn't what worried him. The person that worried him the most was the female who sat at the desk in front. It was a person whose abilities could tell if one was lying or not. "Please, Quinn, take a seat," Nathan said. "I'm going to head out for a bit. There's something I need to do, just in case we can't come up with anything," Vorden said. "Do you mind telling me what the backup plan is?" Layla asked. "Trust me, even if you did know, it wouldn't be possible for you, and I don't think you would want to do it." "Why don't you try me?" she said with a smug look on her face. Vorden then walked towards the door to leave the room where Layla was standing, and as he walked past, he whispered the plan into her ear. After hearing Vorden's plans, her eyes opened wide, and her face dropped to the floor. At that moment, her whole opinion of Vorden had changed. In fact, what he said was true. If it was her in this situation, she was unsure if she could do the same thing. With Vorden gone to make sure his backup plan was ready if all else failed, Peter and Layla were left alone in the room together. As the two of them sat there awkwardly in silence, Layla was starting to miss the crazy boy a bit. At least he was a conversation starter. All the pain he had suffered from Earl had gone just like that, in an instant. If Quinn had this power all along, why didn't he do anything? Peter thought to himself. It's a waste on him, Peter thought. As they continued to do their own thing, a rumbling sound was heard. It immediately made Layla jump from the bed she was on and look for the door. "Peter," she eyed him warily. "You're not getting hungry, are you?" "I think it's starting," Peter admitted. Although Quinn said it was unlikely he would get hungry within one day after feeding, there was still a possibility that something could happen today, which meant Vorden would have to make sure his backup plan was ready each and every day. As he opened the door, though, he was surprised to see Layla standing in the corner of the room while having her bow pointed at Peter. "Whoa, what is going on here?" Vorden asked. But before either of the two could say anything, a message was received on Vorden's watch. "Vorden Blade, you are to head to Nathan's office immediately. Judging by your location, you should be able to reach us in 5 minutes. If you are not here, then prepare to face the consequences." "What is this about?" Vorden said. "You heard the message. I've got to go. And you two, stop fighting and make up. We have enough problems as it is." "No, wait!" Layla cried, but the door had already shut, and Vorden was rushing off to the office. "I'm sorry, Peter," Layla said. "Let's just keep it like this for now. I'll stay by the door, and if anything happens, I'll leave first." "Well, why don't you let me head over to the fridge and see if I can try to make the hunger go away?" Peter asked. Layla took a deep breath before replying. "Fine." Using her telepathic ability, she opened the fridge door and pulled out a piece of meat for Peter. making sure Peter kept his hands up while she was doing this. After seeing what he was capable of and what happened to Earl, she wasn't taking any chances.
Quinn, where the hell are you? Layla thought.
Now, Quinn, I'm sure you're thinking why we called you here, right? Nathan said. Well, as you may know, there was a death yesterday, and we're trying to find out who's responsible.
Wait, you're saying it wasn't a beast?
Quinn said, trying to act surprised. Well, it might be, who knows? All we do know is there have been quite a few cases like this before. However, death seems to be following you around lately, and we need to know if it's bad luck, or maybe it's someone with bad luck that is following you around. So please, if you could touch the pretty lady's hand, we can begin the questioning. Quinn obeyed the order dutifully. At first, there was no reaction as the woman had yet to activate her ability. All Quinn could hope for now was that they would ask him simple questions like last time. But this time was different. It was the second time he was being interrogated, so they must have found some type of link, linking him to the others. But the truth was he really did have no clue about what happened to Brandon. He only knew about Loop.
Now, Quinn, do you know the truth of what happened to Earl Hampton yesterday?
The lady asked.
This was it,
Quinn thought. Her hand started to glow, and energy started to enter Quinn through his hands. Then a message from the system appeared. An ability has been detected. User's mental strength and charm is strong enough to block the ability. Would you like to block the ability? To his surprise, a new message had appeared, unlike what happened last time. It was an unexpected but welcome result. It seemed like the charm stat was becoming more useful with every new problem he faced. The issue now was if he blocked the girl's ability, would she be able to tell it was blocked? After confirming with the system that he wished to block her ability, Quinn answered the question. No. She then let go of Quinn's hands. He's telling the truth, she said. The reason why she believed this was because of how her ability worked. It couldn't actually tell if someone was telling the truth or if someone was lying. The ability could actually only determine if someone was lying. The interrogation went on after the girl touched Quinn's hands again. Nathan was asking Quinn questions about the missing students from before, and eventually this line of questioning led to the bite marks. Quinn answered the questions he could as truthfully as possible, but whenever he wanted something to stay hidden, he would use the system to block the girl's ability. All right, the interrogation is over, Quinn, Nathan said. It seems like you were innocent, just like we thought. Oh, then why did you try to question me? Quinn asked. Just to be absolutely certain, Nathan replied. Then, a few moments later, a knock at the door was heard. Come in, Nathan shouted. Vorden had walked through the door, and to his surprise, Quinn was there with them. Please, Vorden, is it? If you could sit in this chair, we would like to ask you a few questions. As soon as Vorden had entered the room and saw Quinn and the others, he tried his best to figure out what was going on. Please sit down, Nathan said politely. Vorden sat down in the chair opposite the woman. While he was sitting, he would give the odd glance towards Quinn. He could see that Quinn had a worried look on his face, which meant something was going to happen that he wouldn't like. Now, we're just here to ask you a few questions, Vorden. Simple, right? Nathan said with a smile. But I warn you to answer truthfully now, for our beautiful woman here can catch your lie in an instant. The woman then held out her hand for Vorden to touch it. Did you have anything to do related to the death of the student named Earl Hampton? She asked. Vorden didn't answer immediately because he was trying to think. The teachers had made one mistake before interrogating Vorden, and that was telling him the abilities of the female in front of him. Although Vorden was there, the same couldn't be said for Syl. Syl spent most of his time sleeping in the room or just sitting in the back, staring blankly in front of him. If you don't reply, Vorden, we have to take your silence as a confession that you were involved somehow, Nathan said. You have a question for me? Syl said, pointing at himself. Even the woman was a little taken aback by the change in attitude, but decided to press on. She repeated the question and asked again. No, I wasn't there, Syl replied. I don't even know who this Earl is. The only person I know is Quinn, Syl said, pointing in Quinn's direction. The woman continued to ask questions that Nathan had presented, and Syl continued to answer in a naive, childlike manner. He's telling the truth. Not a single time did either of them lie. Nathan then went to adjust the glasses on his face, a habit of his when he was stressed out. Maybe we do have a beast roaming around the school. Nathan then looked at the two of them. His gut feeling was telling him something was wrong. You two stay here for now, Nathan said, We're going to keep you here for a while and pull up some people who were around the scene at the time, see if anyone spotted you there too." "Huh? But we already answered your questions," Quinn complained. "Look, if you're not guilty, then you have nothing to worry about, right?" Nathan replied. "All I ask is that you stay here a little longer." With that, most of the sergeants had left the room to try and gather more information. Right now, Faye was busy looking over some documents with the woman, while the two boys were sitting next to each other. But while doing so, Syl couldn't help but keep smiling at Quinn. Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked. Syl then turned his head to the left and right to check if anyone was nearby, before placing his hand over his mouth and whispered, "Oh, I'm not Vorden. My name is Syl." Quinn did not know how to react to this. He calmed down and started to think. Maybe it is an ability he copied before coming here, Quinn thought. A mind swap ability which allowed Vorden to fool the woman. "Vorden, you are a genius." "Nice to meet you, Syl," Quinn smiled back. "Thanks for helping us back there. We owe you one." "No problem at all," Syl said. He lifted his hand and started rubbing Quinn's curly hair as if he was a cute dog. "If you ever need any help, you can always call me." Inside the black room, Syl left the chair and walked away. Sorry about that. That was... Vorden started to stumble on his words. "That wasn't you, I could tell," Quinn replied. "Good thinking on the mind swap, then. For now, as long as none of us was seen that day, we have nothing to worry about." As the words left Quinn, he felt something fade away from his body. "What's wrong?" asked Vorden. Grabbing his chest, Quinn replied, "I think it's Peter. He is hungry. I can't control him for much longer. I'm already losing the connection." "But it was only yesterday that he had his fill," said Vorden, making sure to keep his voice down. "I know. Guess we are just unlucky. At this rate, if he doesn't get it every day, he will continue to starve. And I'm afraid when he is hungry, I can't control him as I did earlier." "Quinn, we have to get out of here," Vorden said, grabbing him by the hand. "I think Layla's in trouble." A beep was heard in the room as the door slid open, and in came Nathan. "Looks like we're in luck and someone found something," Nathan said with a smile. Inside the dorm room, Peter had eaten every single bit of raw meat he could find in the fridge, but it didn't help his hunger at all, and the pains in his stomach were starting to get worse. "Peter, please, you're starting to scare me," Layla said. He was now hunched over the floor, grabbing his stomach. "Layla, please, just leave," Peter shouted. "I can't. What if you go kill someone again?" "I would rather it be someone who deserved it than you," Peter said as he looked up at her from the ground. A few seconds later, everything that Peter ate came back up, along with some greenish liquid. "Peter, are you okay?" Layla asked, with a concerned look on her face. As Peter raised his head, his eyes were glowing a bright red. His two front fangs grew larger. They were sticking out over his lower lip now. He slowly got up from the ground and made his way toward Layla. This was it. She reached for the door and tried opening it, but a loud crash, as if someone had just broken glass, made her pause. Turning around, she saw the bedroom window was broken. Peter limped in the darkness towards the forest. The fall broke his legs, but even as he walked, they continued to heal. "I won't hurt any of you guys, I promise," Peter told himself. "But I have to do something to get rid of this hunger." A student came out behind the teachers, one that Quinn wasn't familiar with. However, Vorden knew him quite well. The student was Berg Sunshield. Now, Berg here said on the day of the event he saw a student running through the halls looking quite panicked, Nathan said, while everyone else was heading to the second-year building to see what was going on. A single student was running in the opposite direction. Coincidentally, though, Berg's description seems to match one of you, a curly black-haired boy. Vorden then started to laugh by his side. "You think Quinn did it?" Vorden said. "Come on, the two of them don't even share the same classes. Besides, do you know how many curly-haired students with black hair there are in this school? Well, you see, Vorden, that's why we brought him here, so he could confirm who he saw that day." That day, Berg had seen Quinn running through the halls. As soon as he entered the room, he recognized him, but seeing Vorden defend him so suddenly, like he knew something was up. "This isn't the kid I saw that day," Berg said. "I'm pretty sure it was someone else." "What?" Nathan said. "Are you sure? Come closer and take another look." Berg did as asked and stepped closer and looked at Quinn carefully, trying to act the best he could. "I'm sure it's not him," Berg said. "Do you mind if I go now?" "Let's call it a day. It looks like I've wasted everyone's time here for no reason," Nathan said. Quinn was unsure what had just happened. Perhaps Berg really did see someone else running through those halls and it wasn't him, but whatever the case, they were now free to go. Before leaving, Vorden turned and said, "Thank you, Berg, I owe you one." "Just remember this for the future," Berg replied. Outside, Peter was walking through the forest. He was no longer limping as his legs were now completely healed. However, the pain in his stomach still hadn't disappeared. It was a strange feeling. He slowly made his way through the woods until eventually he had reached a pathway. Just as Peter was thinking of going through with his suggestion, he spotted someone walking down the path. His body wanted to lunge out at the person, but Peter tried to fight against it, staying in the woods. Suddenly, the person stopped and stood still. "I can feel your bloodlust from here," the boy said. "Come out, you ghoul, and tell me where the hell your master is." The boy's eyes glowed red in the dark as he stared right into Peter's eyes. Quinn and Vorden headed back to their dorm room, making sure not to walk too fast. They had finally arrived just outside the room, and when they opened the door, the first thing they saw was the broken window and glass shards all over the floor. "Huh? Where's Layla?" Quinn asked. "You don't think Peter already ate her, do you?" But if that was the case, Quinn would have gotten a message from the system, and also there was no blood to be seen in the room. That's when they heard a small little sobbing sound coming from one of the corners. "Oh," Quinn said with a sigh of relief, "you're still alive." "Where were you guys?" Layla said with an angry tone. "I can't believe you left me on my own. You know I'm not strong enough to deal with something like this." It was clear Layla had been given quite a shock. Quinn did his best to calm her down. Just then, Quinn wrapped his hands around Layla tightly. "It's okay, don't worry, Layla. I'm sorry about all of this. It's all my fault. I should have known better," Quinn said. The hug felt nice and warm and reminded her of her family. But what made everything even better was the look on Vorden's face. Layla thought that perhaps it was jealousy because she was getting closer to Quinn. But actually, Vorden was worried about Syl. Luckily, Syl was quietly sleeping inside the dark room and didn't get to see this scene. "Layla, you need to tell us what happened. Where's Peter?" Vorden asked. Layla recalled the events of what happened while the two of them were away. "If he's outside, I have to go find him before we have another Earl situation on our hands," Quinn said. "This is bad," Vorden said, "especially since they already suspect us. We can't deal with a situation like this right now. You two stay here. Worst case scenario, I have to use my shadow skill to hide. Besides, even if someone saw me, they won't know who I am." "Wait!" Vorden shouted. "I'm coming with you. If Peter is like Layla says he is, then you're going to need me. We're just going to have to go through with Plan B." Quinn didn't like it. He didn't like it one bit. Whatever happened, he didn't want to go through with Plan B no matter what. But right now, what choice did they have? "Quinn, sometimes I think you're too nice for this world," Layla thought. After clearing away the broken pieces of glass, Layla decided to head towards her dorm room. Underneath her bed, she pulled out a little chest with a digital lock. After entering the authorization code, the chest opened, and she took out a sphere-shaped object. Pressing the top of the ball caused it to light up, and she waited for a few moments as the light dimmed in and out. "Hello, Agent 84. Do you have another report to give?" a female voice said, coming from the communication ball. "Yes, ma'am. I wish to give you an update on the report I gave you earlier. It turns out what I believed would be good for our cause is not so good for us after all. I will send you the full details later." "That is a shame to hear," the female voice coming from the orb said. "I hope you do get to enjoy your time left at the school and continue with the original mission. Also, on another note, Mr. True Dream will be visiting the base soon. We are unsure of which candidates will be selected this time, but don't worry too much if you are selected." "Noted," Layla replied. "May Pure be with you," the woman said. "May Pure be with you," Layla replied in a way that made it sound forced. "Quinn, I hope I'm doing the right thing not just for my sake, but for everyone's," she thought to herself. "Vorden, I'm going to go on up ahead. I think I got Peter's scent," Quinn said. "Peter's scent? What are you, a dog?" Vorden said sarcastically. But the next second, a shadow had gone to Quinn's body, and soon after it was replaced with a black figure, a mask on his face, and his beast equipment on his arms and legs. Into the night he sped away, rushing into the forest. Peter's senses were all over the place. The pain had gotten the best of him, and he was willing to do anything to get rid of that hunger. As Fex saw the ghoul leap out from the forest, he prepared himself by getting into a fighting stance. Then, at the right moment, Fex lifted his head off the ground and swung it outward like a whip, hitting Peter right in the center of his body. However, nearly instantly, Peter was standing up once again. A few of his ribs had been broken in the process, but they regenerated almost instantly. Is he starving? Now, who would be stupid enough to turn someone and not have everything prepared beforehand? Fex thought, not knowing how Peter came to be a ghoul. The more times it would heal itself, the more energy it would use. It was starving itself more each time it healed, and eventually there wouldn't be any energy left, and healing would come to an end. Peter came rushing forward once again, but Fex didn't look too worried. I'm not into killing other people's family members. If I did, then it could start a civil war, and I don't want to be the one to blame for that. He ran towards Peter, and just when Peter was about to swing for his head, Fex ducked at the right moment. He dashed forward, not touching Peter, but swiping his hands around him in the process. This continued onward for a while. Peter would strike while Fex would dodge, staying close to him, moving his hands but not touching. Peter had fallen to the ground and was now completely tangled and tied up in some type of string. It's a shame. If you worked for me, I could turn you into a really good puppet. You're quite strong for a ghoul. It took more strength than I thought to slow you down. He then lifted Peter's head off the ground and looked into his eyes, casting some type of spell. Suppress the hunger within yourself. Calm down. After saying those words, Peter felt something inside his body change. The hunger suddenly didn't feel as bad as before, and he was slowly starting to get a hold of himself a bit more. I didn't create you, so the spell won't last for long, Fex explained. Now tell me, which family do you belong to? What do you mean, my family? Peter finally answered. They have nothing to do with this. They're just normal shopkeepers. Keep them out of this. Hearing Peter's words, Fex felt like something wasn't quite right about this whole thing. However, he didn't have long to think about it. When suddenly out from the side, a big line of red blood was shot out, but what was most surprising to Fex was the fact that he recognized the attack. It was a blood attack that only other vampires could use. As Peter looked up, he didn't even recognize the figure standing in front of him. But of course, it was Quinn in his new suit. While moving closer to the mysterious figure, Fex made sure not to make any sudden movements. Hey, I know you might just be trying to save this. Fex then looked at Peter, who was lying on the floor between them. Human, I guess. But I think you don't understand. I've tied him up for your and everybody else's safety. As he got closer, Fex started to notice something. Or rather, the absence of something. Where's his scent? I'm not smelling anything from him, he thought. Quinn, on the other hand, had no clue of his suit's side effects. His #1 priority was getting Peter out of the situation and back to their dorm room. In specs. Name, Fex Sanguinus. Race, vampire. After seeing the information, Quinn froze for a bit. He had to reread it twice just to make sure what he saw was correct. Then, a horrible thought ran through his mind. He remembered what the blonde vampire in the system had told him. Now that he was a vampire, they would come after him and be careful of them. It was too soon. Quinn didn't even know how strong he was compared to other vampires. But when Quinn tried to run away, something inside of him gave him a jolt. A force was pulling him towards Peter and refusing to let him leave. Quinn then fell on one knee, breathing heavily. "What is this?" Quinn asked. "It's your family bond," the system explained. "Similar to how Peter can never harm you as his master, you can never desert him." Skill Shadow Cloak activated. Right in front of Fex's eyes, his opponent had disappeared, and without giving off any smell, it was hard for him to locate this person. "Wait! You're a vampire! We're on the same side! Stop!" Fex shouted. Daze. Daze skill faded. After seeing Quinn struggling in hand-to-hand combat, Fex found everything quite strange. Does he not even know the basic martial arts? It was something all vampires were required to learn, but Quinn was throwing his punches out quite randomly. But then he also knew some advanced skills, such as the flash step. "Just get out of here!" Peter shouted. "Leave me! There's no point in both of us dying!" Once again, Fex was confused, but this time by the ghoul. If they belonged to the same family, the blood bond wouldn't allow one to be deserted in time of need. With nothing working, Quinn only had one choice. He threw out a blood swipe and caught it using his shadow control. With the scythe being held in his hands and his suit of armor and mask on, he truly looked like a Grim Reaper. "Is that the shadow ability? But that's been lost for years," Fex said. "Just who is this guy?" Suddenly, a beep was heard coming from all three of their watches. As they looked down, they noticed the time was 9:45. It was the 15-minute warning sound telling them curfew time was coming. Running as fast as he could, Vorden desperately tried to catch up with Quinn, who was running in front. When he looked at the watch, the time stated that it was 9:45. This meant that they only had 15 minutes before curfew time, but for Quinn and Vorden, who were already suspected of perpetrating a murder, it would look suspicious if the two of them were out a night after curfew and didn't have a good reason for it. Knowing this, Vorden had no choice but to turn around and head back to the dorms. Seeing the message on the watch, Quinn started to panic. He didn't have time to rescue Peter. Once again, when Quinn tried to move, he was stopped by the bond. He tried to force through, but it was pulling him down to the ground. Fex could see something was up. Fex looked at Peter and had a little hunch on what the latter was thinking, but it wasn't something he could confirm right now. "Look, you aren't meant to be here, neither am I, so I won't tell anyone about you. I'll leave it in your hands, but if you need any help, then I suggest that you come to me." Soon after, a cloud of mist filled the air where Fex was once standing. After the mist started to disappear, it looked like Fex was vanishing away with it. "Is he gone?" Quinn asked. "That mist is a transformation spell," the system explained. "Most likely he has turned into something that allows him to pick up more speed." With that knowledge, a weight was lifted from his shoulders, but there was still another problem weighing on his mind, and he was soon reminded of it. Peter started to scream at the top of his lungs. It felt like he was being stabbed repeatedly in his stomach, and as his hunger grew, so did his strength. The tight strings that were once holding him down were starting to snap one by one. "Quinn, quickly, give him some of your blood. It will only be temporary, but it should calm him down as you have more control over him," said the system. Then, using the tip of his tooth, he bit down on his thumb, causing blood to be drawn. He walked closer to Peter, and after just taking a few steps, Peter lifted his head and turned it towards Quinn. Quinn then lifted his hand and started to squeeze the blood from it, allowing it to drip into Peter's mouth. Just like that, in almost an instant, Peter started to calm down. "How long will this last?" Quinn asked. "Long enough," the system replied. Placing Peter on his back and equipping his beast boots, he activated his wind walk. He no longer had any time to take it easy, so he ran as fast as he could back to the school without any intention of slowing down. Vorden had safely made it back into the room on time, and Layla had left long before to go back to her dorm room. In the kitchen, laid out on the table, he had gotten what looked like a meat cleaver. "Okay, Vorden, you can do this." Vorden then placed his arm on the table, laying it flat, while grabbing the meat cleaver with the other. "Here goes nothing." He swung it down, but at the last second, he stopped just inches above his limb. A thud sound was heard in the room, and as Vorden looked up, he could see that Quinn had arrived while bearing Peter on his back. The sound on their watches went off again, indicating that it was now 10 o'clock. A ping would then be sent to the security office, revealing the location of all those who were not located in their rooms at that moment. However, as soon as Peter had entered the room, the smell of fresh human flesh had entered his nose, and he once again succumbed to his crazed self. Quinn quickly held him down using all of his strength, but the struggle was tough. "Now is not the time to be hesitating," Vorden said, but once again as he looked at the meat cleaver and his hand, his heart started beating like crazy. "Ah, you big back! Let me do it!" Rayton said as he took control of the seat. Without hesitation, Rayton swung the meat cleaver down onto his arm. Unlike Vorden, though, he didn't hesitate one bit. "Here you go," Vorden said as he chucked over his arm towards Quinn and Peter. As Vorden's arm was flying through the air, Peter managed to overpower Quinn and push him off. Peter leapt into the air like a dog trying to catch the arm. It would have looked funny if it wasn't so gruesome. "Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked, with a worried expression on his face. "Don't worry, I'll be fine," Vorden replied with a little smile. "Guess we needed Plan B more than we thought." Vorden felt a bit strange, seeing Peter eating his arm right in front of him. Instinctively, he grabbed at his arm. He felt the part below his elbow was already starting to grow back. This made him sigh in relief. Luckily, the healing ability he acquired was already starting to work. "I hope this is going to be enough for him, because I don't feel like going through this again today," Vorden said. "It should be. When he finished eating, he will calm down a bit," Quinn replied. He was just repeating the words of the system right now because he wasn't sure of anything anymore. When Peter finally finished eating the arm, Quinn felt strange energy surging through his body. It felt the same as the first time Peter ate human flesh. Looking at Vorden, Peter noticed his arm was missing. With fear in his voice, he stammered, "Vorden, your arm." "I don't know." Peter felt appalled with himself. "This thing?" Vorden said as he lifted his stump. "Don't worry about it. In a few hours, it will have grown back. This was our backup plan in case you lost control before we had found a permanent solution for you. Before coming back to our room, I went down to the canteen and copied the ability of a student who has regenerative power. We didn't expect you to be hungry so soon after you fed on Earl yesterday. Well, I guess we better get started with cleaning this place before anyone finds out what happened here," Quinn said. When Vorden was cleaning the kitchen counter, he said, "Hey, Quinn, you fancy a drink?" At the same time, he was squeezing some blood from a towel. Quinn was amazed at how Vorden could still crack a joke in a situation like this, but then again, nothing ever seemed to faze the guy. Since turning into a vampire, Quinn wasn't affected much by the sight of blood anymore. Even Peter eating Vorden's arm didn't bother him much. What surprised him was how well Vorden was handling it. While they were busy cleaning up, Quinn had the chance to ask the system some questions, because right now he had a lot of them. "Do you know how long Peter will be required to eat human flesh?" "Well, for once I have some good news for you. Peter is the type of ghoul that needs to be fed daily," the system responded. "If that is good news, you have some sick sense of humor," Quinn thought. "Just wait, young one. The ones that require food more often quickly get stronger. If you carry on feeding Peter for a week, then by the end of it, he should evolve." In the middle of their conversation, a notification screen popped up. "New quest received. Make your family stronger. 2 out of 7 feed your ghoul, Peter, 7 different types of human flesh. Reward, family member evolution." The quest stated that they would need 7 different types of human flesh. Just like Quinn with his blood, he would only get stronger when consuming a new person's blood. The same could be said for Peter, who would have to consume different types of flesh. "If, and I mean a big if," Quinn said, "if we carry on using Vorden, will it still suppress his hunger?" "Yes, although he won't be able to evolve as quickly." He hated the fact that he had to rely on Vorden, and using him would only be delaying the inevitable. Right now he needed to find a solution as fast as possible. Vampires were a secret to the world, and he was sure Fex would want to keep it that way as well. It was a risk, but he would have to confront Fex and ask for his help. In the morning, Quinn and Peter didn't go down to the canteen for breakfast. They had decided to stay in their dorm room. Quinn couldn't bear for Vorden to go through so much pain again. That's why he offered to help. With his greater strength, he was able to cut through the entire leg in one clean stroke. Vorden looked scared when Quinn was about to cut his limb off, but all of a sudden his facial expression changed. Instead of fear, it now showed anger. Vorden shouted at Quinn, "Just do it, you little wimp!" Quinn now wanted Peter to evolve as soon as possible, as hopefully this would help with Peter's dietary problems. Quinn also realized he thought of Peter as a friend again. He suspected the strange bond between them might have something to do with this. Because the 2 days of rest were over, every student was required to start training in their combat classes again. The 3 of them split up. Peter and Vorden went to the elemental class, while Quinn went to his combat class. Now that Peter had been fed twice in a short time, the system assured Quinn that he could last at least 24 hours before he needed to feed again. At that time, Quinn needed to come up with a solution, or if he couldn't, he would have to find Fex and ask him for help. Vorden and Peter were together in the elemental class. However, they pretended to no longer be on speaking terms with each other, of course. Vorden still kept an eye on him. While everyone was looking at the teacher, Vorden noticed that a couple of students had come over to where Peter was standing, and it looked like they were nudging him a bit. The 3 of them started to move away from the crowd, towards the back of the classroom, out of sight of the main group of students. "Are they working for Duke?" Vorden thought. "They won't do anything to him here, and Peter has just been fed, so he shouldn't go on another rampage." One of the students whispered into Peter's ear, "Move to the back of the classroom." Once they were at the back, one of them whispered again, saying, "Duke has a message for you. Make sure you bring your Earth ability up to level 4 by the end of the week. If you do, there will be even more rewards for you." Peter agreed because he didn't know what else to do. Now that he had become a ghoul, he couldn't even use his Earth ability anymore. He was wondering how he was going to solve this in a week. Quinn can change the number on his watch by tapping it. Maybe I can ask him how he does that, Peter thought. After staying at the school for only 2 days, Fex had already learnt something. Life at the school was quite boring. The first student that he had met was Aaron. Because Fex was a new student, he had to decide which combat class he wanted to go to, and after finding out Aaron went to the beast weapons class, Fex knew what class he wanted to sign up for. Along the way to the beast weapons class, Quinn met up with Layla and Aaron, who was trailing behind her. On the way there, Quinn was thinking of possible safe ways to approach Fex. He would need to talk to him in a public place, where he couldn't use his abilities as freely. But before that, he needed to find out what class he was in, or where he was. They arrived in the large training hall, and Leo was there as usual. This time, Leo gathered all the students at the front of the training hall, where a small platform had been raised. Leo stood on top of this platform as he explained the upcoming lesson to everyone. However, just before the lesson started, a new student had entered the room. Leo was completely distracted as he noticed something. This student had the same aura as Quinn did. "Hey, this is the beast weapons class, right?" Fex said as he walked through. "Who's that?" "I think it's a new student." "This late into the term, that means he must be a draft evader." When they looked at Fex, their interest quickly died down after seeing he only had the number 1 on his watch. Quinn and Fex looked at each other. They both knew instantly that this was the person who they had fought last night. Fex gave Quinn one look up and down before walking off to find his spot to watch the lesson. This reaction surprised Quinn, to say the least. Isn't he going to say anything? I'm sure he realized I was the person fighting him last night. If I can smell him, he can smell me, Quinn thought. The lesson had started, but it was hard for Quinn to concentrate. As you all know, we have been learning the basics of each weapon, Leo explained as he drew out his katana blade. But there will be times where one's weapon will break, or certain weapons will prove ineffective against the enemy. Leo then threw his blade at the wall behind him. It flew fast, and half of the blade managed to go into the wall until it stopped. In these times, we will have to use our fists. If we have abilities, why would we rely on our hands? Yeah, and even then, if I didn't have a beast weapon or was too tired to use my ability, surely guns would be better? I see. So you think that today's lesson is pointless, correct? Leo asked. Suddenly, Leo started to tear off his military clothing, and underneath he revealed a chest-piece armor that had the face of a demon on it. Even armor-piercing bullets from a sniper rifle at most could knock a single-scale Dalki back. However, when activating the beast gear, the higher-level tier of equipment, the more empowered our bodies to become, Leo said. At first, the students thought they imagined it, but they could all see clearly that the blackish armor around Leo's chest was starting to light up and turn red. Little particles of steam were emerging from the piece as well. Right now, if I was to throw a fist with all my force, I could crumble the foundations of this entire building. The steam started to disappear, and the chest piece's color started to return to normal. At that time, the students realized a certain pressure had disappeared, as if they were under a gravity heavier than they were used to, had disappeared from the room. So they finally figured out how to properly use the power of the beast, huh? Fex said. Well, it looks like they advanced quicker than my father said they would. The power of the fist is useless if you cannot hit your opponent, or if you do not know how to throw a punch, Leo explained. So for today's lesson, I shall be showing you a basic martial art that all soldiers are required to learn. For this, I will need a volunteer. Leo then started to look around the room until his head had stopped at one person. Quinn, how about another spar with me? Having no good excuse to refuse, Quinn walked up onto the platform. Quinn and Leo were standing at opposite ends of the platform. Now for this session, once again, I would like you all to not use any of your abilities. Later on, we will try to learn how to combine your abilities with our fists to make more of an impact, but for now, forget about it, Leo explained as he looked at Quinn. Okay, when you are ready, I want you to come at me and don't pull any punches. Leo assumed a fighting stance, and at the same time, a quest appeared directly in front of Quinn. High-level opponent detected. Defeat the opponent in battle. Reward, instant level up. Let's see if you are the person from last night, Fex, though standing by the sidelines. The fight had started, and while Leo didn't move at all, Quinn started to dash in as fast as he could. He didn't have any of his beast gears on, so his stats were lower than usual, but he also wasn't being affected by the sunlight so much. Seeing Quinn dash from his position, he was certainly fast, but not fast enough for people to think of it as an ability. Quinn threw out a punch fast, but didn't add any of his blood skills. However, Leo was able to move his head to avoid it. Quinn then changed his fist and went to grab Leo instead. He hoped to throw Leo to the ground, but it was too late. The man had already pivoted on his foot and went for a spin. While doing so, he lifted his other leg in the air and managed to kick Quinn right in the head. The force was strong and caused Quinn to fall to the ground. "Again," Leo said. Although the force was strong enough to cause him to fall, it didn't do much damage to a body like Quinn's. He tried attacking again, throwing punches of his own, but every time his attacks would come close, Leo would move or, using the palm of his hands, deflect the strikes. Then, when he was attacking, he would use his legs. The confrontation lasted about 10 minutes, and finally, Quinn was starting to get worn out by the whole thing. "Yep, those sloppy punches of his, that's the person I fought with yesterday," Fex thought. "Okay, that's enough," Leo said. Quinn was now huffing and panting a little, even though he hadn't used any advanced abilities, like the flash step or hammer strike. It seemed to be more tiring fighting against Leo. He would always use the palm of his hands for defense, and whenever he was attacking, he would use his legs. "What you have just witnessed is the martial art we teach our soldiers here. It is named the Pugna style. It's important. The reach in our legs is longer and more powerful than in our arms, but our arms are more versatile and flexible." Leo then started to look at the crowd of students again. "Is there anyone here who would like to have a go? This is your chance to have a one-on-one battle with your teacher here." Most of the students were nervous. They didn't have many hands-to-hand combat experience because they focused on using their abilities or training with weapons most of the time. Out of all the students there, a single person had his hand raised. "I wouldn't mind having a crack at it," a student announced as he sauntered forward out of the crowd. When he came into view, Quinn was surprised to see who it was. "Just what is he thinking?" Quinn thought. "Oh, if it isn't the newbie," Leo said with a smile. Sweeping his black hair back with his hand and taking a look at Quinn, Fex had a big smile on his face. "Bring it on."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.